happens when you stick 3 opinionated blokes in a room and put World of Warcraft in front of them.
A completely unchained view from each of them that clash in spectacular fashion, much like the best raids of all time. Classic.
There's going to be someone who's always right and someone who's always wrong, like Dunkurk is, as we know the latest raids are much better.
So, with that in mind, it's time to take a look at the latest Warcraft news and speculation. But be careful what you wish for, because
You think you do,
but you don't. I did no such thing. Hey there, guys. Welcome to You Think You Do, But You Don't. With myself, the almighty Farseer, Kexman, and...
You're not Dunkurk.
I'm sorry, I'm not as good looking.
However, we can probably understand you quite clearer.
Wow.
I'm just saying what everyone's thinking.
Are we taking the shade to the maximum levels possible?
Yeah, we have to.
Shade, though, is it? This is just typical English Scottish banter. It's just
you have to start high. If you don't start high, you have to keep the shade up. It's not something you can build into, especially when you're talking about someone from Scotland. Because if you don't start high straight away, then they're just going to maul you. So if you are listening, Dunkurk, ha 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 ha.
What a shame for Dunkurk. But hey, guys, welcome to the show. Today we do have the one and only, the legendary Leto on the show with us, who is known for his for such works as Ancient of Law.
Oh, no one heard of that. Come on.
And Council of Six. And
even Leto didn't hear of Ancient of Law. Let's be fair now.
I didn't know what I was doing in the first place. That's not even a joke.
And also, who could forget the most well-known and famous cross-faction with Leto and myself?
God,
you couldn't even do it with a straight face.
I was going to say, that wasn't just a fever dream? Good lord.
For some of us, it might have been.
It may have been, but yes,
remember, it's a wonderful time. Personally,
it was a wonderful time. But this is a better time because you are here listening to You Think You Do, But You Don't on Warcraft Radio. We have some interesting topics coming up for you, mostly looking at Classic WoW because we are in the first week of Classic WoW. We're very near the end, actually. It's the 7-day anniversary today, so we'll be taking a little bit of a look at how it's been received, how we feel it's gone, and how our personal feelings with Classic WoW returning is going. What else have we got coming up, Farseer?
Oh, wow, you just put me on top. I wasn't ready to take the next one on there. Goodness me.
That's okay. None of us are ready. None of us are ready. Like, I've been off of WoW Classic for, about an hour and a half, and I'm already feeling withdrawals.
Yeah, I'm itching. I'm itching. I'm sweating.
I'm okay. I'm all right.
You can do it. I'm coming out in hives.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put it forward. We're gonna start off. Let's start off like slow, and we'll work our way into it. We'll ease our way into it.
What have we just discussed? You start high and you keep high.
Okay, no, we keep high. Okay,
he's gonna keep going at this level.
Right. Let me put it this way. Right. So let's compare all of our experiences. There'll be many people in the audience, and there'll be us lot as well. We've all been playing Battle for Azeroth. Some of us on and off more than others.
I was going to say, I think last time Leto played retail WoW, I think Arthas was still around.
No. Okay, so I'm going to preface all of the complaining and the out. I have 2 level 120. I do.
Okay.
I have actually played through it Horde and Alliance. When I complain about something like that, I do want to have an experience behind it.
Okay.
You want to have some reason.
You want a reason to complain, at least. You can't complain about it if you don't experience. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we've all been playing BFA, some more than others, and we've had our experiences. Now, I'm just going to touch on this briefly as we're going to zoom quickly back to Classic. My experience with BFA is that it was okay for the first 3 months. The start of an expansion is always fun, no matter what it is. Even Warlords of Draenor for the first couple of months was fun, from what I hear. I never played that one. But it kind of trailed off rather quickly for me. And then we came to Rise of Azara, which actually did bring some fun back. I did enjoy Rise of Azara when it first came. Did not like the gating of the story content.
Oh wow, gating. We've always had gating. Deal with
We'll
it.
Get to that.
Let's get to that later.
We will. Don't worry, we'll be getting to that. But it was enjoyable, but the main goal for me for when Rise of Azara came out was flying. Now that I've got flying, it's all sort of teetered off again. So now let's go to Classic, as this is what everyone wants to talk about and what we're doing. The other day, so say if I were playing Classic, the other day I got to the Barrens, and I got to that quest that everybody knows, which is the Plane Striders, killing the Plane Striders, getting the Zephyr Hooves, killing Raptors, and getting the Raptor Heads.
Wait, so you found Mankirk's wife, all right? Yeah?
No, Kex found Mankirk's wife, I believe. He came across her.
So as I was running, obviously as a Tauren, you come through Mulgore, you go through Camp Tarajo, and then you have to run.
You're planeswalking your way. Oh.
Yeah. So you run up to the crossroads, and in between the crossroads and Camp Tarajo is Mankirk's wife. So you find her straight away, and you just go back to that spot when you're ready.
I didn't think anyone ever found her after all these years, but Kex, man, he just came across.
Thank God.
Thank God. Thank you, Kex.
Thank goodness. Mancrick. Okay, I know it's Mancrick. I just learned how to pronounce it wrong.
Everyone says it's Mankirk, like everybody.
Everyone says Mancrick. Mm-hmm. I was saying this on the stream last night. I think Mancrick's wife is probably the most well-known NPC in Warcraft.
Probably.
I don't think there's an NPC that comes close to that.
Up there. She's definitely up there. But speaking of the Barrens...
It's not Mancrick that's well known, it's his wife that's...
It's very...
Yeah, exactly. Mancrick's wife is well known, not him. He's nothing.
That's very, very true. Anyway, so we're in the Barrens. I was in the Barrens, so there I was. And killing Plane Striders and Zephyrs and Raptors. And I had an epiphany that I was sitting there doing this mundane task of killing these things, and I wasn't bored out of my mind. It was bizarre to have this feeling that has been there for a while, and I was saying this to everyone while I was in chat, and the answer was it's because you're actually getting rewarded for what you're doing, and you're not mindlessly killing everything with zero risk to your character. And I believe that's a very important element that is missing from retail currently.
I sort of mentioned it on the stream last night when I was leveling through the Barrens again, is before Classic came out, I was very much on the fence. I thought, Classic, yeah, okay, it's fine. You know, you can do Classic if you want, I'll probably play it. And then I was realizing over the past couple of days as I've been playing it that I'm liking it a lot more than I thought I would. It seems to be, even though it's slower, it's a lot more methodical, and obviously you're not doing massive numbers, and as a warrior I'm eating about 80 chickens per quest because I'm having to eat after every single mob. It feels so much more relaxing, and I think part of that is the rewards that you get with it. I think part of that is, you know, the feeling of actually gaining something every time you level, because there is, you know, the kills are that slow. All of a sudden you gain an extra level or you gain an extra item, you suddenly feel a lot more powerful. So I think for myself, Classic WoW has been something that I am enjoying a lot more than I thought I would. How long that's going to last, I don't know, because obviously the further on into it you get, the more grindy it is, but the playstyle never really changes. So I'm going to be quite happy if it stays the same. It's a lot more relaxing than I thought, and it's just in general, I'm loving it. I'm genuinely loving it more than I thought I possibly would.
Do you prefer it to retail currently?
Okay. That's unfair. No. That's an unfair question.
Okay.
That's an unfair question. They're different products at this point. In my opinion, retail WoW and classic WoW are different genres of game. And people get frustrated when I make this comparison of retail WoW is very much a Destiny 2 kind of game, where technically it's an MMO or multiplayer game of some kind, but you're also focusing on going through the world and doing your own thing. and you're really focusing on your questing and your gear and what you can accomplish. And to not say that WoW Classic doesn't also have that, but it's also about the world and how you are progressing through the world and how you're working with other people, building your name up and your character up to eventually get something done. So I don't think it's fair to throw Kexman that kind of question, because that you can't compare the two. Like, I personally don't like retail. I don't. It's not the product for me. That's fine. I don't judge people. We got ghosts.
Did we lose Leto?
No,
what happened?
Everything's fine. Oh god, the door just slammed in the office here. Oh god.
There are some spirits that do not agree with Leto.
That's fine. Spirits are allowed to like retail all they want. It's okay.
J. Allen Brack
Don't
heard, J. Allen Brack heard you talking shit about retail and used his psychic powers to break your door. But I think Leto has a very good point. They're two completely different games, and they are almost a complete 180 of each other. The leveling content in Classic is so much more involved, so much more what's the word I'm looking for, kind of rewarding, because of the items you get, because of when you level, you feel a lot more powerful. Then you get to endgame and there's a lot of grinding, and although a lot of people like to look at the raids with rose-tinted glasses, the raids themselves, they're not difficult. The raids aren't difficult. There's a reason why people are expecting Molten Core to be killed within the first week or 10 days, because it's relatively easy. The fights themselves might get difficult later on, but again, that's because of the, how sort of infringing some of the abilities that you had and just the general playstyle of it. You then look at BFA and current retail WoW. The leveling experience is, it's miserable, to be honest. It's fun to play through it once, but, looking back on it, especially BFA, you hit 116, you lose your legendaries, you've got the stat squish, you've got the, no extra talents. It's a miserable time. The raiding, on the other hand, the developers have done an incredible job. All 3 raids that we have had so far, this expansion, have been fantastic. There's a reason that Method have been able to stream them with such a successful platform, and it's because of that. So comparing the two, I honestly don't think it's possible.
I'm gonna... Like, the rating in a... Like, the rate... Okay, the ball... But that's... Like, Razor Gold in Blackwing...
Leto, apparently you're cutting out a little.
Yeah, apparently J. Allen Brack has affected your microphone. Apparently.
Oh, jeez.
we will cover for Leto.
We will indeed. I did have a question. Actually, Kex. So I'm going to throw it.
Okay.
As you said, like, the raiding is a bit more of a grinding Classic, and obviously they've improved with raiding a lot more in retail WoW. So obviously, you got Ajara, Atal'Zor, and of course all the raids in Legion as well. So. Do you think, so here's the first question, there's 2. Do you think, firstly, that there has been a lot more focus shifted onto raiding than the world itself in retail? And do you think that there was a lot more focus on the world in Classic and maybe not so much as there is now, like on the raiding side? So do you think it's done a bit of a swap?
Yeah, almost. I think you're naturally going to find that, because I think as we've, especially people that I've spoken to that never played Classic Warcraft, that have come in during Cataclysm or come in during Miss Pandaria, they have kind of been spoiled, because the last few expansions, yes, there's a lot of systems that they've put in that people don't want, and there's a lot of things that people kind of, are questioning. But I don't think we've been disappointed by a raid, realistically. We might have been disappointed by how long we've had that raid in content droughts. But the raids themselves, when they're first... Yeah, exactly. The raids themselves have all been fairly successful. So I would say that it's also so much that the actual the way that the game is looked at during Classic WoW, you looked at the whole game as essentially your gameplay. That was, that was what you did. BFA, Retail WoW, it's now more a case of your leveling experience and your gameplay is just a vehicle to get you to the end game. Mm-hmm. And that's what people focus on. Yeah. You look at Classic WoW and you've still got people that are very, very happy creating twinks in certain scenarios, in creating PvP characters. So you then, it differs. You heard of twinks all the time. There are reasons that stuff like the Shadowfang sword sold for massive amounts. There are reasons why items like that were very, very popular, and it was because of twinks. Nowadays, when was the last time you heard of a twink PvP set?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's very true.
For better or worse.
Do we have Leto back now? Can we confirm?
Hopefully people can hear me.
People in chat confirm that we can hear Leto.
For some reason my audio it's not pushing as much as it should, so I need to play around with it a little bit. Apparently, happy days.
You don't have that adjustment, that auto adjustment on yours as well, do you?
I'm not going through Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Can we have some L's in chat for Leto, please? L's in chat for Leto.
Thank goodness. So the point I was trying to make, is credit where credit is due. Retail has really taken raids in a great direction. The mother fight from Ulduar, Uldum.
Uldir.
What?
Yeah, there's so many
add another Titan chamber thing.
There is another one actually.
There is Uldaz. Uldaz. They've already mentioned it.
I can't keep them all straight anymore in my head. Oh my god.
That's ironic. Neither can the development team.
Oh, don't even get me started. I'm not even going to comment. So credit where credit is due. There are a lot of things that I do like that Retail has done. The raids, the actual complexity of the world itself, the thought that goes into quests. These are great things that Retail has done. However, they have exchanged that for a lot of player choice in how people enjoy what they play, when they play, how they play, how they build their character. So in Retail, you take a fire mage. Let's take a fire mage right here. Fire mage is right here. And then you take another fire mage that a new player just made right here. They're going to be pretty much the same thing. They're going to work the same way. They're going to function the same way. They're going to do pretty much, for the most part, the same thing. And while that may seem like a petty point, or that may seem trivial, the fact that a character really isn't your character, is just a character that you pilot, that it really isn't.
It's a cookie cutter.
Yeah, and a lot of people complain that there were cookie cutters in vanilla, and if you wanted a raid, you had to use them. It is absolutely not true. That was a lot of people who put a very little amount of thought into how raid guilds were developed, how they were built, how invites worked. Bear with me here. I'm going to get to a point eventually, Kex. I can see Kex being like, I
want to say something, but
if you want to min max, obviously yes, certain builds are going to perform better than others. I will always agree with you on that. However, you have to give players the choice to figure that out for themselves, look it up, or develop the build on their own, versus forcing everyone to have the exact same build that functions the exact same way. There is a loss in soul, in my opinion. And while that sounds petty, if you give players the opportunity to fail, that allows a player to learn, because failure and a lack of success is the greatest way to figure out how to not succeed less in the future.
Yes.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I would disagree in regards to where that pressure comes from. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the reason why people remember Classic WoW as having, people seem to think that Classic WoW had a very open, an open mindset when it came to stuff you could play. But realistically, there's a reason why, only warrior tanks, only this, and it wasn't so much there was a cookie cutter build, but it was more a case of you had to play a very certain class a very certain way, because if you didn't, then you were almost laughed out of the raid. And the reason for that isn't because, I mean, yes, I agree, you do kind of lose a bit of soul. And with the amount of classes and specs they have, it's very, very difficult for Blizzard to balance that 100% fairly. Mm-hmm. It's never going to happen.
I like what, I do, sorry to interrupt you guys, but I like what Slowpoke Gamer did say. He says it's like picking a hero in Overwatch. That's very, very accurate.
That is. Let Kexman finish what he was saying, though.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, it's kind of... It's more the pressure that is put on players by other players.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
And I think it's because you have to look at it from a perspective of endgame. So when people got to endgame in Classic, there was a very, very defined idea of what a raid should contain.
Sure.
You should have warrior tanks. If you tried to turn up as a rep paladin, you were laughed out of the building. Paladins are holy and nothing else. Priests are holy and nothing else. It was very much, you could have a slight change in your builds, but as a general rule, everyone had the same sort of build. Because it was endgame content, people were looking for the most optimal, sort of like raiders that they could. You look at it now, it's the exact same thing. You have to, there's a slight, that I will say, however, in retail, you do get more of they have balanced out the specs slightly more. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
So I think it's more a case of it is something that has become an issue, but I believe that issue is more focused on the players and the pressure that players put on other players.
I agree with that. No, I absolutely agree with that. But I would contest that comes from a point of ignorance and a point of assumption. And that's two things that, in my opinion, harmed raiding in vanilla. Now, let me justify that point by saying you are absolutely right when, let's say, a boomkin tried to get into a raid and people did laugh at them and they felt pressure to not be in that raid anymore. I would say that's not the fault of the boomkin by any stretch of the imagination. I would say that's the fault of the raiders for being closed-minded. I don't, and this is the approach I get at. I don't care who does what spec or how people do it. I care about the results. If you can get from point A to point B, I don't care how you're traveling there. Are you in a cart? Are you walking? Are you in a scooter? Are you taking a limo? It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If you can mitigate the damage appropriately, I'll take a shaman tank. Mm-hmm. Happily. Yeah. If they can mitigate it properly, which is very, very difficult and for many situations impossible. But as someone who has done it and experienced the benefits and drawbacks of it, there are certain situations where a shaman tank functions better than a warrior.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think Keldon in chat makes a point. It's down to lack of knowledge back then. Mm-hmm. I think the one thing that we need to really look at now versus what we had originally in Classic was we basically have 15 years of experience behind us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have 15 years of experience of what we can do with Classic. People have been able to experiment on private servers. That can't be ignored. And the fact that we have had this time to explore, I think we're going to see some really interesting stuff coming out. Especially, I think the one thing to look at is going to be when it comes to this world first race that Method is currently doing. Mm-hmm. I genuinely think with the characters that they have, with the players they have, there's going to be some surprises.
Absolutely.
You could see a shaman tank on, you could see a shaman tank in Molten Core. I don't think it's going to happen, but depending on what players they have, depending on who has got lucky with drops, it's going to get interesting, because I think we can all agree that Molten Core is not exactly a difficult dungeon when it comes to raiding.
If you're talking about mechanics, no, it's not a challenge. And this is one thing that I do compliment retail on, is especially with a lot of the actual mechanics that they have developed that involve excess movement, that involve when you should and should not engage damage. In Wrath, when we started seeing heal-based fights,
Velithra Dreamwalker, a very, very popular fight.
That was very, very popular. That was an amazing mechanic. I thought the actual fight development, the design rather of the fight, exceptional, really good. Oh. I want to see the retail raid design be put to use with classic mechanics.
That is actually the perfect transition into our next topic, as we have been overflowing a little bit and staying on this one a bit too long.
Nothing wrong with overflowing.
But that being said, yes, classic, learning from classic and putting that practice into retail. That is what we kind of want to touch upon. It's going to be in the next 15 minutes now, as we did go to over. But basically, yes, can we get lessons learned from classic and put them into retail, into expansions going forward? Can we improve the game and bring it back to that magical place of where we enjoy from vanilla? Now, is vanilla like warm enough in everybody's hearts for it to please more people than it would anger if you changed it at this point? A point that, or rather, something I brought up yesterday when speaking with Keldon in chat was, I think that this classic being released now, we all know it's an experiment. And this is also like an experiment in multiple ways, but one of the ways I think it is they want to see how many people warm up to classic and enjoy classic, and then they go, now that people have looked at classic and enjoyed it and remember what it is, now we can start implementing classic things back into retail in the future, because now they've experienced it and now they will understand it. If you did it with all these new players who never knew classic before, they would probably go, what the hell is this? But now they've experienced it, I think that they would be warmer to it.
I think Kex and I are actually going to be on the same side here.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. So I think this depends very, very heavily on what their plan is moving forward. Okay. If their plan moving forward is to essentially re-release expansions, because it's, realistically, it's minimal work as a business for money. Any business would do it.
Yeah.
If that is their plan, then 100% yes, they will be able to apply some of the lessons learned in Classic WoW into Retail WoW, because they're repeating it, they're not adding anything new. They can solely rely on the fact that people will play those for nostalgia, people will play the new stuff for the new stuff. They want new content. If, however, they decide to expand on vanilla and create new content in vanilla, using the vanilla playstyle, using what we already have there, they might not decide to include lessons learned in vanilla into retail. And the only reason I say that is because if they can create content for vanilla and also create content for retail WoW, they effectively have two games they can market under one subscription. You have the classic experience, which features, there's no LFG. It's a lot more focused on character building. It's more of an RPG. Mm-hmm. Then they have the retail version, which is a lot more jump in, kind of do what you need to do, leave very quick, but also has the more challenging encounters. It has two very different, and as Leto touched upon, it's two completely different things. And if they have the ability to create two very separate games that they can market to two separate audiences under one banner, I think that would be a very, very successful way to go, because they are able to gain two audiences from that.
I think Kex is right. I legitimately think Kex is right. I don't think classic applies to retail anymore. They're too different. They're too far separated. Retail needs to figure out what it wants to do, though. And that in my opinion is a bit of a problem, for better or worse. It could also be a really good problem to have, because suddenly you're looking at it saying, well, classic is back keeping these people happy, and it's keeping a lot of people happy, so that's great. We have this product still sitting here that people also enjoy. What do we want to do with this product? And you get to ask yourself, whose phone is going off? And the answer is going to be Farseer's.
Farseer.
That never goes off. I'm sorry.
That's a party foul, that is.
Is that a streamer party foul right there?
That is a streamer party foul right there.
And I'm going to, because there's been a little in chat, just a little bit of retail hate. You are allowed to not like it. It's perfectly okay to not like retail. I can't stand retail myself. However, if someone likes it, if people enjoy it, more power to them. That's great. Yeah. I celebrate that. I support that fully. I'm glad that people can enjoy it. It's such a different product that to call it bad is insulting the time and effort that goes into it. You just don't like it. That's fine. That's great.
100%. And not only that, if you get to endgame as well, there's no reason why you can't play both. There's absolutely nothing stopping you being able to do that.
The only person stopping you is you. I think I say that way too often, but you get the idea.
Can they still take elements though from Classic and then put it into retail for improvement in future expansions though? Even if they do keep them both, is it not a good idea to try and go, oh hey, this works, and we could probably craft something not like so much of a hybrid that they take so much from Classic and shove it in the retail, but elements from it that work, and try and craft something better, because their goal is to always craft a better expansion.
Sure. I feel like that is a dangerous slope to try and get back on. That is a dangerous concept to try and hit on, because as soon as you say, well, Classic's doing so much better, we may well just do more of that and everything, that generates a lack of choice. And I'm going to harp on this later on.
Classic gives a lot more choice.
I am going to harp on this later on. The more choice you give consumers, whether it's in a single game or across a slew of products, the better. Automatically better, because you're putting the power and the choice in the consumer's hands. I think with how far away retail has gotten from Classic, figure out what you want to do with the product, move forward with that purpose in mind. Like, craft an esport product, craft a high-end, high-quality rating environment, grouping environment product where it's a lot of players pushing to be the best possible in these specific systems. Have leaderboards, have scoreboards. Make it more of an Overwatch style-like product. Make it a more Destiny style product. Move forward in that direction.
And there's also a reason why we can't end up having retail being that version. They've already got the Mythic Dungeon Invitational. They've already got the World First Race available there. There's no reason that Blizzard, as Leto said, can't really double down on that and turn around and say, right, okay, you guys want to play something that doesn't necessarily become part of an esport. Here's your Classic WoW. Here is your, you've got your content. You can do that as and how you wish. If you want to take it to the next level and be something that is, they could even make retail, this could potentially cause a lot of issues and could make people angry, but you suddenly make retail slightly harder because it does have the leaderboards. It has this world first race potential. Blizzard doubled down on that. They see the success that Method is having. They see the success that Red Bull is having in streaming these events. They become part of that, and they solely focus on having, retail become that version of WoW, and you have your Classic WoW become a completely different version of WoW, but still Warcraft all the same. All of a sudden, you could effectively see one of them branching off and becoming the fabled WoW 2 that people seem to lose their mind over.
I'm going to play my weeb card and say,
oh God,
you're making retail Gun Gale Online. Gun Gale Online is something that was from Sword Art Online.
Gun Gay Online? What the?
Gun Gale Online. Oh. It was something that was in the series Sword Art Online. It was season 3, I believe, where like the world they were in, it wasn't like there wasn't a focus on the world. It was like a huge event. And they had every month or so where they had, like Leto said, but they had leaderboards where everyone participated in like a huge battle royale. So just for example, as that is in modern day as well. And they all participated in a huge battle royale in the huge MMO world. Completely unbalanced. Everyone had different guns. Everyone was doing different things. But it was all about the viewership, the competitions. The world was there, but it's focused on all of this, that, and the other. And I think if you say they want to double down and turn it into that, okay, it'll turn into something different, but maybe different is good. Maybe right now they're at a halfway point. So this is Classic. This is what, the double down, and they're like here, and it's kind of in a weird space where it's not quite sure where it wants to take that leap, and still sort of clinging to its roots. So maybe if it is going in that direction, I won't lie, that is got a bit of a tingle at that prospect. I probably
why not look at it this way? I love that idea. Make retail the thing that people hop in every so often to be like hyper competitive and see if who can hit these races right, and have Classic be the regular world that we all exist in. And yeah, we still raid in it. We do instances, we gear up, we try to have a ton of fun with that stuff. But if you want to be hyper competitive, you have that separate product, that retail product that allows that kind of activity and is very well supported, equally supported as Classic. It's just gone a very different direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good idea, in my opinion.
God, no. I think you touched upon a very, very important point there, Farseer, where it seems as though they are trying to do too much for too many people.
Yes.
Classic WoW used to be about, being the best character that you could be, being, getting the best gear. Like they said, if you saw someone decked out in all epics, you knew that they'd put in the time and effort. Now, not to say that someone who's decked out in epics nowadays isn't putting in the effort. 100% they could be, and there's a reason there are mythic versions of gear that you can physically see appearance-wise. So
they didn't stand out in the world.
Exactly.
Like they did.
The problem you've now got is that WoW, especially, and I think this generally started around Wrath's time period, in that it got so big that there was no possible way that they couldn't have everything for everyone. It was very much a case of, I pay my X amount of money per month. I deserve to see the content that you guys are creating, because otherwise, what is the point in me paying my money? Which I can kind of understand from a consumer point of view. And I think that it's now got to a point where they've put so many systems in place, LFG, LFR, you've got 3 different versions of dungeons, you've got 3 different versions of raids, you have, all these various different things going on, that it's getting to a point where they almost need to start narrowing it down. And this might be the perfect opportunity for them to do that.
I agree with you about a lot of that, although I think my reaction to what happened at that point between Wrath and Cataclysm, like late Wrath, early Cataclysm, Blizzard was faced with the fact that their MMO, their world they had built, had grown so large, and there were so many voices that it was starting to become very difficult to filter out feedback on it and processing and understanding of what players and consumers wanted. And how do they continue making money on this without continuing to smash their overhead upward? And yeah, we are definitely coming to the end of this segment here, so I will keep this short and brief. I think they blinked at the end of retail and at the end of Wrath. I think they were staring down this almost it was an overwhelming challenge to question of what do we do next? How do we continue this growing in the best way possible? And instead of trying to build big and build for the macro, they blinked and they decided, no, we're going to try and hone this down to certain pieces of feedback. So they removed the talent trees. They honed in the questing. They really sharpened the world up so you could have flight, so things were a lot more accessible. You had revamps to the LFG system. You had a lot of different changes come in that tried to smooth everything out and try to handle a lot of the more louder complaints and louder pieces of feedback, when what, in my opinion, they should have done is continue building on a larger macro scale, continue expanding things outward, make more adventures, make things more difficult, ramp that difficulty up so the people at the top, that there was a little filter there. So when people finally got to raiding, they were ready for some truly difficult challenges. And admittedly, some of the Cataclysm raids, except for maybe like Dragon Soul, which we don't really talk about ever, some of those raids, like I have fond memories of Firelands. I really love Firelands. There were some really good raiding aspects there, but that's kind of the point. That early Cataclysm is kind of the point where I realized this has become a different game and I don't feel comfortable anymore.
Yeah, I think Slowpoke makes a good point in the chat, is that Blizzard went with the idea of something for everyone and ended up satisfying nobody. There is enough there for everyone to do, but whether or not they want to do it, it's, I mean, even you look at, the one thing to note is you look at the world first raiders in Method and the world first guilds, or the top 100 guilds. They all say the same thing. The raids are fantastic. The fights are really well put together. They're difficult, they're challenging, but they don't feel impossible, with the exception of maybe a few that are mathematically impossible. But they just say that the way you get there, the amount of grinding you have to do for artifact / Azerite, the gear treadmill, it's getting too much now. Because there isn't one defined way where you can get your gear, earn your experience. It's all through these various different things. And I think Blizzard really needs to take a look at that. And I know, obviously, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it doesn't really matter to them. They're like 1% of the population. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that are seeing the majority of the, they're seeing the majority of the systems in place. And if they don't like the systems, then it probably isn't going to be great for everyone. And speaking of great for everyone, we've just apparently had word in the chat. We have the world first 60.
Woo!
Do we know who on what server? That's my big.
It would be one of the Method streamers who I think are on.
Please let us know about that, and we will. It's
Jokered.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, there we go. That is a perfect ding to transition us into our break. But guys, we have been having a lot of agreements. Having a bit of a sort of
Don't worry,
but that's
we got disagreements coming.
That is definitely going to change after the break. So join us. We'll be back here in a few moments' time. Go grab a drink. Go sit down. Go stand up. If you were sitting down, I was going to
say you're sitting down already, probably.
Whatever you want. But we will be back with you very soon.
Now hit it very hard and very fast. Lee, run to the center. Mogris, run to the center. Foresight, run to the center. Sarp, run to the center. Ices, run to the center. Whatever the you do not stand next to other people. Mogris, center. Just heal me. Lee, do not go away from the head, Lee. Go away. K, DPS, slowly. Come here, you touch the tail.
Well, crush him was fair than turret.
Who the was that? Crush him? What the Well,
yeah, like what happened here, I actually took Onyxia and started tanking the whole 300 wolves that were coming. Like, heal me, mother. I'm like, I will tank this just like them. We can do this. We're too overpowered. Yeah, that didn't work. The fact was, like, a guy from my guild asked me if he could record me while running some raids. Yeah. Because he thought I was hilarious.
Are you?
Well, I'm really funny. By the way, there was an update before this.
Was there?
Yeah.
What was the update?
One that made us up at the mixer for 4 hours. It's probably like bolted with 2 feet.
No, we can't. We shouldn't destroy anything.
Why? I burned a few hotel rooms down.
Mark?
Oh yeah, definitely. I will never say no. I will only say no when I'm dead or passed out. Like, if you're ready to come in naked, come in naked. That guy just started to f me up. I'm not angry anymore. It's like no,
it only comes in the morning.
You're kind of antsy. Like, you should eat the Snickers. Eat the Snickers. Take the goodness. Like, I consider myself like the next Keanu Reeves.
Really?
Yeah. That never happened. Like a whole sexy pose on the bed going over there.
Can you do that for me? Okay.
Disgusting. Please, welcome. What the f?
don't is right here once again for you. And everything is about to change. The agreements are going out the window. The good conversations and goodwill is going just out the door. It's all about to kick off right here. This is
before you start though. I'd like to point out that just before we went to break, obviously Joke had hit level 60 on his mage. We've had some statistics. He's had 3 days and 7 hours played on that mage. Oh. Since
launch,
he has only slept 8 hours.
Oh,
why?
That is unhealthy, and people our age cannot do that anymore.
They really can't. Like, I struggle. Like, if I don't sleep 8 hours a night, I wake up and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so no. I've been doing like 4 or 5 hours sleep a night for the most part, but I'm used to that because I worked in kitchens for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think my past is probably close to about 8 hours a week. I'm not entirely sure. For those that are asking, this isn't Essence of RP, but it's close to, because this man's Farseer, I'm Kexman. We used to host Essence of RP. Leto's on the far side. He used to not host Essence of RP.
Yeah, it's very true.
I did the show before Essence of RP, which was an actual lore show.
Why did you say actual lore? As if we were like fake lore?
I'm not going to say that's true, but that's true.
Okay, I thought so. Speaking of true, though, our next topic might cause. So, for those of you that didn't tune in last week, we spoke about quite a few different things. We spoke about store mounts, especially the new ones that have come for Classic WoW, the Alabaster mounts, the statue ones that, now that I've had a closer look at them, look really, really nice. The textures on them and the design of them is actually quite nice.
We also spoke about the most important mount, the Deathwing mount.
That isn't the Deathwing mount.
Which the community agreed and voted heavily against.
The community is wrong.
That was
not a Deathwing mount.
What is it then? No, then what is it? What is it? But what is it? What is it?
Black Dragon mount.
It's so it's a Black Dragonflight mount.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, what is the difference at that point? Because, and I will point this out, Neltharion was the progenitor of the entire all of 100% of the Black Dragon flight. So, It is in that family. So, you could say his blood flows through that mount.
Okay, that's fine. So here's one for you, Leto.
I'll say a Neltharion breed mount.
So no, but here's the thing: is that mount Deathwing?
It's his progeny. It's his offspring.
No, is that mount Deathwing?
It's pretty much Deathwing.
It looks stupidly like Deathwing, and it's trying to capitalize on that without being Deathwing. And I will say it is not directly Deathwing's model. It is trying. Trying to capitalize directly on it.
Yeah, well, of course it is. That's the whole point of it.
Okay.
But those that say it's Deathwing, it's not Deathwing. It's like saying
it's pretty much Deathwing.
But it isn't though.
It is one step away from Deathwing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to talk blood relation, it is one step away from Deathwing.
Yeah, but you're one step away from your dad. Are you your dad?
Pretty much. I don't know if you want me to say no. I can't say no.
God.
Except the hair. I still have the hair.
Well, there we go then. So you're not your dad
yet.
But
what if that mount, you're just riding it for like 10 more years, Kex, and all of a sudden it becomes Deathwing
and orange tentacles start spitting out of it.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
We're going to be selling it, guys. Don't worry. In the Warcraft Radio store, we're going to be selling a Kexman mount here soon enough, just for you guys.
Kexman mount is going to be happening. Also, speaking of orange tentacles sprouting out, I'm gonna put forward a very, very controversial opinion, seeing as we're on the subject of Deathwing, and I think it is one that could cause some concern.
Okay.
I had no issues with the final boss of Dragon Soul.
That's your choice. That's personal preference.
That's
wrong. How dare you?
So this is the same thing I get into with retail. If you like retail, more power to you. I just don't. That's just me.
Straight up, don't.
I just don't. I'm not gonna judge people on what bosses they did and didn't like, or what raids they did and didn't like. Like, yeah, there were some raid encounters and raids that were better or worse, in my opinion. I think we can all agree that Dragon Soul was pretty shitty. I'm not gonna. If you like an individual boss fight in there, though, I'm not gonna like. It's whatever.
I think Dragon Soul suffered more so for just the amount of time it was out. If you half that time frame, I think Dragon Soul's is received much better.
Less time to pick it apart.
Much better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say Dragon Soul as a whole, if you half the time it's out, it's much better. Speaking of, the time that it's been out, it's been a week since the last episode, and the last episode also featured a conversation on content gating, which I know for a fact. I think there was a lot of discussion revolving around that in regards to, content gating, what is considered content gating. Obviously, I'm of the opinion that content gating has been around forever, and that's never going to change. But every single expansion, it all of a sudden seems to become a buzzword. Every single time, it's been a buzzword since Burning Crusade. But people always seem to keep bringing it up. It was a big issue in Icecrown Citadel. Everyone loves Icecrown Citadel, but they seem to forget that for the first 3 months of it, you couldn't do most of the bosses.
They weren't happy about that, though.
Yeah, but again, it just people were happy about it at the time. They were just like, oh yeah, whatever.
I think we need to take out before we have this conversation. I think we take out the preconceptions that other people had about things. Like, you can complain about people complaining about something, or you can complain about people not complaining about something, but it doesn't necessarily get a point across. It doesn't define a stance or a point.
But it makes me feel better, Leto.
I understand. I will give you a hug later if it makes you feel better. Yes. But we need to stick to facts. We need to stick to facts and reason. We shouldn't conjecture based off of groupthink, is what I'm saying.
Mm.
Oh, that's a dangerous place to be. You start thinking outside of the mob. It's not good. It's not good.
And I'm just gonna leap into this. If you're okay with this, Farseer, if you need to jump out of the way, by all means. And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this, Kex. I think Dunkurk and Farseer did not explain the point they were trying to make on the time argument that they were making.
What a surprise!
But so I'm trying to be fair for everyone. The point that
go for the fart.
The point that I think Dunkurk was really trying to make there, and Farseer to a lesser extent, was with the amount of hours someone was able to put in per week versus per month. They made it sound like if someone is putting in that much time each week, every month, and the person only puts in that one amount of time per month, so it's 40 hours a week for 40 hours a month, that suddenly if you're taking 4 weeks, 160 hours should not equal 40 hours. And that's the opinion that you were taking on the show last week. At least that sounded like how you were interpreting it.
Yeah, so the way that it was explained is that someone who's doing 16 hours a week versus someone who's doing 16 hours a month, the way that they were explaining it, or the way it sounded like they were explaining it, is the person that they should both have the exact same thing.
Yeah, and they were poorly explaining that point, in my opinion, and it kind of put you in a place of being a bad guy, which really wasn't fair to anyone. So I'm going to repose that question to you. Let's say...
But I am a bad guy.
He always likes playing the bad guy.
But he plays Alliance, doesn't he?
Oh.
Oh. Now that everyone's calmed down and giggled, I'm going to pose a question to you. Let's say I can only play 1 week out of a month. I can only play that week. I am cut off entirely from having access to the game otherwise. So 1 week I can put in 40 hours of game time versus a person who over the course of a whole month can put in those same 40 hours. My conjecture is, with those 40 hours, we should make the exact same amount of progress.
Okay, so what you're saying is that so they're both spending 40 hours in 1 month?
Yes, but one person is
doing it in a whole week versus someone who's spreading it out over 4 weeks.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Right, okay. So the argument then isn't so much, when it's explained like that, it does obviously make more sense. you do then have the issue of time gating. The only thing that I would say is that time gating is it's not only a way for them to, a lot of people would say it's bad that they are extending the content. They're artificially extending the content. Some people see that as a bad thing.
I know I personally don't like it. My personal preference, I don't like it.
I can understand why. I can understand why people would find that a bad thing. However, from my experience, I have seen a lot more people complain about burning through content too quickly than they do against content that is artificially gated.
I would ask.
No. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where we really can't complain about other people complaining or complain about other people not complaining. We need to really.
I'm curious. I'm curious where this burnout come from, though. Just
so you see, I've seen it a lot of times on obviously official forums, unofficial forums such as MMO Champion, sections of like Wowhead. So it's not just taken from. I haven't just seen like one thread pop up.
No. I think I may have not said that properly. So when I mean where, I mean like as in what did they burn out on? Like not where it came.
You want context, Farsi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in regards to, for example, if you have, for example, the new patch that came out. Mm-hmm. Now the new patch came out. It had the new raid, and you also had the new area available to you. Yes. With a storyline that was involved in that area that was obviously gated behind rep, that was then gated behind daily quests because you could.
Najata,
exactly. Mm-hmm. So if you have everything available to you from the start, and you decide to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to play for 5 hours tonight, and you burn through all of that content because it's all available to you there, and you've only got dailies left. Then immediately you've run out of content, you've burnt through it, and you then go, well, what was the point in that? That's a crap patch. Okay. If you turn around and you have content that is gated like it has been in Najata, where you have to get to a certain rep to get a quest that is unlocked, you then do that quest, and it's usually not just one quest, it's 2 or 3. It happens with your bodyguards that you have, so the Najata bodyguards that you have, where you can do quests for them, so there'll be a little quest line that you can do, and it just kind of keeps you coming back and doing more over a course of X amount of weeks. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So rather than just turning around and going, right, 5 hours Wednesday, boom, done, now I just sit back and that's it. Okay. You're kind of not getting value for money there.
Okay, so firstly, the first thing I've got to ask is, you said if they had 5 hours to blast through the content and burn through it, that's that content there and done. When did that happen? I'm still asking of when or where has that happened?
I think that's I feel like that's splitting hairs. That's missing the point, isn't it? Like,
no, because I asked for an example. He said that people have said that they burn through content too quickly, and that's the argument.
I accept that at face value. Personally, I accept that at face value.
I personally don't, because the content's had so many gates and stuff on it to keep it in the way Kexman has just described it for such a long time. I want to know where they got to a piece of content where they got through it so quickly they burnt out. When did this happen? Like, is it in recently?
It was happening. Warlords of Draenor, for example, that was a point when there wasn't that much content gating in regards to rep grinds. You were having it happen in Mr. Pandaria, for example. Mr. Pandaria was happening, and people were burning through, some of the, not so much Thunder Isle. Thunder Isle as an expansion was very much a case of, okay, this is, you've got whatever you have. Timeless Isle was an example when Siege of Orgrimmar patch came out. Timeless Isle was there, and they just shredded through Timeless Isle, and then it was, okay, now I'm back to grinding mobs. It was happening in, you even look back to certain things such as Cataclysm, some of the Cataclysm stuff that was coming out, and people were, you look at Dragonsoul, when the Dragonsoul expansion came out, when the Dragonsoul patch came out, you had 3 dungeons that were with that.
Yep.
People did those 3 dungeons on the first day.
Yep.
Okay. Congratulations. You've now done it. It happens. It happens
if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, but then they would complain.
I don't. Okay, all right. Let's spread this out and chop it up here, because I think you guys are both presenting good points, and I have a point to make with this. You're both right.
Okay. Please chop this up for us, Chef Leto.
So,
cook it to us.
I was never a chef. Second off, I'm going to slap you. Kex, I think you're right in that absolutely there is the, not just chance, there is the opportunity and the happenstance of people burning out of content. I don't think it matters. I think it's a moot point entirely, personally. And this is my argument against content gating when it comes to artificial means. And what I mean by that is you are also right in that content gating has existed pretty much since Burning Crusade. With all the different... So if you guys look up a chart of unlocks and raid unlocks and how you go through the rep grinds for Burning Crusade, it is this massive chart of you have to get all of this done. And this is how you get to this raid, this is how you can do this raid, and you just go and go and go. I think that system that doesn't necessarily have a time lock, but has an effort lock of you have to put in this much effort to get these many things done is infinitely better to saying, okay, you've played your 5 hours or 10 hours of this much content. Here's the artificial lock. You have to stop now. I believe that this also feeds back into players learning how they manage themselves and decide how they want to enjoy content, because even if a player complains, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. That just means they have hit a point where they feel discomfort. 9 out of 10 times, in my opinion, that's something that they need to experience, because suddenly if people stop feeling that possible burnout, they lose that knowledge of what it feels like in the first place. They lose the ability to regulate themselves, and they're forced to rely on Blizzard saying when they need to regulate. So exactly. In my opinion, the fact that there is these artificial gates that have been appearing almost constantly in the last couple expansions has been a severe negative with player choice and the ability for players to learn and grow as to how they like to consume games. And people need to be given the opportunity to know life stuff if they want to. Yeah, there is a peer pressure kind of scenario where some people may feel pressure to do that, but just like with the whole race to world first and whatnot, that has no bearing on how an individual person should enjoy the game. If someone's going to take a year and a half to get to 60, do it. Absolutely, yes, and enjoy it. Enjoy it, and then try to figure out if you want to do instances or raids. But you don't have to do what everyone else does.
Exactly. And I think that, I mean, Rav says in the chat, talking about vanilla gating, it's less content gating, it's the time gating and rep gating, which these days is also a time gate where you just wait for content. I think it's very, very important to note, how players now are playing and consuming the content. Players nowadays versus what they were back in vanilla and TBC, A, they're a lot more knowledgeable. B, players are infinitely better than what they were back in the day because video games and MMOs have been out for much longer. So it means that they can get through stuff like this quicker. C, it also means that, if you're paying for a monthly subscription-based service, you are effectively getting value for money. The longer something takes, the more you get for your money. It's, rather than just burning, if you've got a 30-day subscription, if you do something in the first day, you are effectively paying a month's subscription, amount for 5 hours of play, which is not great value for money. You also have to look at it from a business point of view. From a business point of view, Blizzard have to make money. There is absolutely no way that you can ignore that fact. And the best way for making that money is through gating content. They can't gate it in the same way that they used to be able to do because A, you have, say for example, they tried to do an AQ model these days. They tried to do an AQ model that was, very similar where you had to build up war supplies.
Okay, like an AQ opening event.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So A, the amount of stuff that you would need would be data mined 3 months before the patch even came out and they'd be able to stockpile that. B, if you then tried to randomize that, the complaints would be massive because people would complain, I don't know what's coming on. We can't get this quick enough. We need the content more and more. We need to get this content quicker. It's a pain in the arse. They do it with Azerite gear. They do it with artifact power. I need to get more Azerite gear or power because I need to unlock my stuff. They just feel so they want to.
if I could just jump in before you get too away from the original, from one of your original statements, Kex, I don't necessarily agree with the whole, if you put in like do everything in the first day of your sub, you've now like put all that sub into that first day. I think that when you say, oh, Blizzard, needs to kind of make sure because they want to make money, so they've got to pad it out, you're paying that 1 month subscription no matter how much you're doing, right? So if you do it all, let's say in the first 3 days, or you do it spread across that month, you are still paying for that entire month, no matter what. Blizzard is still making money for that month, because whether people play for the rest of the month or not, they're still paid.
But what feels better?
But that's here we go. It's up to the player what feels better for them. Is it better for them to go at their own pace where they will want to take a month for it? Or do they maybe have like, a solid 3 hours, 3 weeks of full-time work, but they got 1 week off on a holiday and they want to just sit down and they want to slam everything out. If you have the artificial gating where they can only do so much in that first week because everything gets unlocked in the next 3 weeks, but they're working then, they're now told your playstyle doesn't fit what we're doing. Sorry. Which is bad.
This is the point I wanted to get at with bringing this back up. It's going to be, and I harp on this a lot, the more choice you give your consumer base, whether it's players or let's say your movie franchise, let's say your Marvel, the more choices and the more options you give your consumer base, the more they're going to put it on themselves to be happy with the product. Versus if you have a very restricted, regulated, controlled product, people are going to look at it more critically, more skeptically, sometimes more aggressively. There are scenarios and situations in which sometimes a product is not going to fit a consumer's needs. That's always going to happen, though. That's always going to happen. And the best thing you can do is allow people to consume things at the pace they feel the most comfortable with, versus forcing that regulated, okay, you get this piece, then you're going to get this piece, then you're going to get this piece, whether players understand that or not. And my argument is that many players absolutely do understand that. They still don't feel that same satisfaction from it, because when they look at something like Classic now, the amount of hours you put in is the amount that you have the potential to get back out. And I think this is a very reasonable point to say, let people enjoy things at their own pace and their own perspective versus time gating.
Mm-hmm. I would agree to that to some extent. The only problem you have, again, is that you cannot compare what you get out of Classic WoW to what you get out of Retail WoW.
That's true, and I was trying to give an example.
Oh yeah, exactly. So again, the player base is much better, but the player base also, generally has a lot less time than what they used to. I think it's probably safe to say that the average age, if you look at the average age of the classic World of Warcraft player versus the average age of the current classic Warcraft player, I can almost guarantee you're going to see quite a big jump. A lot of the people that would put a lot of time into Classic WoW back in the day were probably college students. Nowadays, those college students have grown up. Obviously, you get people that lie outside of that. But as a general rule, we're all playing Classic WoW. I can guarantee you I have a lot less time now than I did back then when I was playing Classic WoW.
I don't know how that has to do with the point, though, to be entirely honest.
So without having the factual numbers, I wouldn't know if the age gap would jump up. I can see your point to it, but I'd have to pull it up before I'd make the claim.
So what I was saying is because people have a lot less time, and because people can kind of jump in and out of retail back then, they didn't. So instead of having the time, so if you could turn around and you can say, right, okay, the only way that you can get Hydraxian Waterlord's rep, for example, is pretty much by grinding through mobs. There might be a couple of different quests that you can do, but it's mostly a mob grind.
Yeah.
So if you then turn around and you say to someone now who's, who might be slightly older, is the fact that you could turn around and say, okay, to get that same amount of rep, you've got to grind X amount of mobs. You have 75% less time than what you used to have. All of a sudden, that's a much larger mountain to climb. Whereas nowadays, the the way people consume gaming content when it comes to playing games has changed dramatically. It's very much a case of, you kind of want that instant gratification. It's much better to be in a position where you have to say, okay, instead of to get this, you have to be able to either A, sit down and do this massive grind for X amount of time in the first week or so, or it takes you X amount of time, depending on your play style. Is it now much better to say, right, okay, we understand that people might have less time than they had available back in the day. Is it not better to have almost like a quote unquote set gate? So, if someone logs in for, I don't know, an hour and a half every single day, maybe to do their dailies. If they do those dailies, that in 5 days you're going to unlock this bit of content, 3 days after that this bit of content. So it's almost like there is something there for somebody. It's almost like an average time span. And I understand you want to give people the same, you want to give people the same amount of you want people to be able to choose how they play. But it's the fact of the matter is that these days people have less time. People need to be able to have more structure around their lives than what they used to. And the way that people consume content is entirely changed. It's probably better to have this average time than it is to have, a massive grind in front of you that you just can't, unless you have, like you said, the 40 hours a week that you can sit down and grind through it all, you're not going to be able to see for another 4 or 5 months.
I don't think that matters personally. Like if you're asking me what I think I would want to market to a player base more, I would say, hey, you do have to kill through all these mobs to get this amount of rep. Do whatever you want. I'd choose to market that over, okay, you're gonna be able to do 2 hours each day, and after 5 days, 7 days of making sure you do those exact same things, then it artificially unlocks this. I would market the first one, to be entirely honest. I think because an adult, and your stipulation is we're all older. It's been 15 years. It has. You're
God, don't I feel it?
Yeah. Oh boy. Your stipulation that we're older and we may have less time, I don't believe that's necessarily relevant to the specific topic. And I would then say whether or not a player has this little or this much time, they can then choose how and when they want to kill those mobs. Let's say they want to form a farm group. Let's say they get a couple extra mages together, they get a party together, and they go out and get it knocked out in much less time because there are ways around certain game mechanics. And again, that's a very specific example. It's not a good example. I would simply say it is better to say, yes, you have to kill this many mobs at any point in time over the course of your character's existence to get that certain amount of rep. I think it's a better marketing tool. I think that's a better choice to give people because it's still putting the ball entirely in the player's court. It's saying kill them whenever you want.
Okay. It always needs to be more in the player's hands about what they do rather than Blizzard's hands. I was in a bit of an exaggeration when we said it originally, and Kex will remember us saying this, but it feels as though Blizzard has more control about what you can do and how much you can do rather than yourself. And I said that should never feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, and this has just come to me, my big thing, my big point against that is you are obviously claiming that it should be player choice.
Yes.
It should be player choice. If you want to sit there, grind out all the mobs, form a group, 100% do that, because it's gated behind rep, for example.
Sure.
You should be able to do that.
Yeah.
My thing against that is that works 100% in, say, for example, a single player game or a single player DLC where you have to collect, say, for example, you have something where, to get to the next stage, you have to collect X amount of things. The moment it becomes something that is part of an MMO, and the moment it becomes something where you gain a reward from that, player choice is fine, but then it becomes mandatory for you to do it the best way possible if you wish to see the content at a decent pace alongside everybody else. Now these days, I will admit that point is kind of made null and void because of stuff like LFR.
Mm-hmm.
But if you then want to sort of get to that level of, being the best player that you can be, realistically, there is only one thing that you can do, and that is the most optimal way. You have to burn through it as quickly as possible, because everybody else who you want to be like, if you're in a guild and you want to be on that raid team, if that raid team is deciding, right, okay, we need you to be, gated behind X amount of rep, to get this certain item, or to get attunement for this dungeon because you need to get that amount of rep before you go into there, that then suddenly becomes mandatory. That completely takes, it's still technically player choice, but it becomes mandatory for you to do that. The moment you kind of almost say everybody is on a level playing field, because for a fact it's not going to unlock for the next 5 days. If you do all your dailies like everybody else, bang on 5 days after the patch has dropped, you can get into the raid. I'm using that as an example. Then everybody is on a level playing field. What happens after that is entirely different. But the moment you try and put some sort of player choice into an MMORPG that is heavily based around interaction with other players, questionable in more recent expansions, but you know what I'm getting at, it then definitely becomes much more of you have to do this to become part of the group, to play the game to its fullest extent if you want to see the content.
You see, I'm not going to disagree with you that peer pressure exists and a certain groupthink mentality exists. However, what I am going to disagree with you on is where the mistake is made in the player versus guild pressure interaction. If you say the player doesn't feel comfortable doing this rep grind right now, or doesn't feel comfortable being a part of that anymore, then maybe they're not in the right guild for them. Maybe they should go into a more slower, faster paced guild. Let's say a player is getting, they're no lifing it, they're getting the grind done fast, and the rest of the guild isn't keeping up with them at all. They should probably move to a guild that is actually participating at a faster pace. I don't agree that that's a good basis for why that system doesn't work, because people have this certain level of ignorance and peer pressure about them. In my opinion, that's a sign of maybe the social interaction isn't functioning at the right speed and the right pace.
I do kind of, understand what you're saying, but then I think, there's some good points in there. The minute you put expectations on your guildmates to get attuned, you kind of eliminate choice for them. And then, just moving to another guild, it's a lot easier to say just move to another guild.
It's a lot easier said than done. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the other good point as well is, I think attunements for dungeons and for raids, especially raids, you look at some of the stuff, the attunements for Karazhan back in Burning Crusade. Now and I'd like to preface this by saying I am 100% behind attunements returning for raids. I'm 100% behind attunements returning for raids when it comes to, you have to do X thing to get into this raid. Mm-hmm. If it was up to me, it would be so this is how I would see it perfectly. For there to be an attunement for a raid, you would have to get to a certain rep of a certain faction to enter that raid. You would need to do a quest line that is available when the patch opens, and you would need to do a prerequisite, say complete the previous raid or a dungeon that has been released during that patch. That to me seems like a very, very reasonable expectation for an attunement. Now, the moment you then have, say for example, you're a very casual guild, you're trying to do Karazhan, one of your friends joins in, I've just hit level 70 and I would like to join your guild. I'd like to do some raids with you. Fantastic. You come in there, all of a sudden you've got to go through all of the attunements for them, including the reputation process, which back in Burning Crusade vanilla time was an absolute killer, because you didn't really have dailies enabling them to catch up.
It was heroics. It was a lot of heroics. It was a lot of very specific quests. And I loved that. I miss it so much.
Yeah, exactly. It was good fun. But the moment you turn around and you say, okay, if you then have, say, for example, you have an attunement for a raid, and one of those is the rep grind, and you know for a fact that that rep grind unlocks in 5 days, you then have, everybody at the very least, when that dungeon or when that raid unlocks, is on the same playing field. You know when someone joins your guild, they have that rep unlocked. They know it is there. Anything else after that, obviously, you have the quests that are available, you have the dungeon that are available. It's a lot easier to get them ingrained with a guild. Now, obviously, if someone's going slower or faster, then yes, they might potentially look at various different guilds. But again, you then get this massive disparity in guilds that you had in Burning Crusade, where if you had someone right at the start and they wanted to join you in, say, for example, I don't know, you're currently doing, let's think Burning Crusade, they're currently doing Black Temple, you wanted to join them, but, all of a sudden there's no real catch-up mechanic, you need to go through Karazhan, you need to go through, all this sort of stuff to realistically get them the gear to catch up. That's not possible, because nobody wants to go back and do that rep grind, do those attunements, and you just create this massive disparity in guilds. Whereas the way that, with this time gating, for a fact that everybody is on that level playing field. It makes the community a lot more open. It means that you can be a lot more, you don't have to be quite as selective or quite as harsh when choosing people to join your guild if you wish to start doing raiding.
This is very situational, though. I see what you're saying, but I see this as quite a situational thing. So you brought in the biggest example and the biggest gap you could have said. Someone fresh out who's never raided wants to do Black Temple. Okay, that is aside from Sunwell, that is the widest example you could give. I
didn't say they wanted to do Black Temple. I said they wanted to join the raid team.
Okay, right. So, okay, fine. But if they're on Black Temple, like you say, they're not going to be doing Karazhan, right? So a lot of guilds would be advertising, we're this raid guild, we're on this current content. So a person already applying to that guild shouldn't be applying to that guild, because that's not going to work for them. That's not going to work for the guild. That's not going to work for them. So let's say, for example, let's tone it back a bit and say they're on Magtheridon, or maybe even at the most Tempest Keep, or probably Serpentshrine Cavern before that.
Serpentshrine before TK.
Yeah. So let's say they were kind of on that, and then people joins them, and let's say, for example, that they haven't raided at all. There are some people that would probably come from other guilds. Maybe they have a bit of raid gear. Maybe they are attuned to some things, and maybe they can slide in a bit easier. But let's go from this fresh one that hasn't raided at all, and they want to get into it. See, here's the cool thing about TBC, Vanilla, back then, before, currently, now. You then go, right, we need to get you caught up. You need to do everything on your end, of course, rep. As you say, if it was a rep grind and stuff, they need to do that. But also they need to run some Karazhan. They need to do a few things like that. And they need help from the guild to do that. I would more than happily help someone new in my guild to do that. I would more than happily do that, rather than bugger off to do another whole set of world quests and dailies and all the other boring things that are currently in WoW, because I know that I'm helping another guildie that is in turn then going to help us progress through the raid. That feels a lot more worthwhile. That is why I would not mind going through some of the old dungeons again, because as long as they're not too far back, this is, again, assuming we're just on Magtheridon and Tempest Keep and what have you. So that sort of thing I wouldn't mind. I would rather put my time into helping my guildies, who will then in turn help me, rather than this content that's going on now. So yes, in your example, it will be a bit of a pain, but as long as they're joining the right guild and it's not a too far apart disparity, which it wouldn't work for anyone, it's not that such a bad of a thing, I don't think.
Okay, let's peel this back. And while I appreciate the point you're trying to make, Farseer, I think it is a minor logical fallacy to say because you would prefer that, other people will too.
It's what people did, though, wasn't it, back in the day? Because there wasn't dailies, or rather world quests to go off and have to do.
Not necessarily.
I think you are making a logical fallacy there, and I'm not trying to crap on you or anything, but I think the point is this, and I want to wrap this back into what World of Warcraft means versus the more multiplayer retail product, which I'm not sure is really a World of Warcraft anymore, and the comparisons and contrast between such. The fact that a character has this lifetime that they go through where they're attuned for Molten Core and they get through this, and then their gear has gotten to the point where they can handle Blackwing Lair and they become attuned for it, and they make it through all these different things, and they have this life cycle that they go through. A character has a life cycle it goes through in the World of Warcraft. versus how the retail product exists right now. And it really doesn't feel like there's a life cycle or anything. Again, you're controlling this paper character versus this is your character, this is your baby, this is something that you have just grilled yourself on and destroyed yourself on to a certain extent. I think, and this is a very aggressive stance to take. If someone isn't ready to join a raid guild like that, if they're not attuned for Serpent Shrine, if they're not, if their gear isn't that point, they shouldn't join that guild. And yeah, that's a douchey way to look at it. I fully 100% admit that is an aggressive stance. However, I also think that people need to recognize that it's not necessarily about what everyone else is doing versus what you're doing. Just because there's that world first race going on over here for Molten Core, like right now it is, doesn't mean you have to participate. Doesn't mean you have to rush. You take content at the pace that you want to take it at, attune yourself when you want to take it at, and appreciate the point where your character exists versus having to worry about keeping up with this or keeping up with that. Find the group that lets you do that. Find the group that matches how you want to take it, and be respectful of everyone else's choices and opinions.
And that right there is the reason why it will never work. Because people will, unfortunately, even though we do have, community is such a massive thing, or should be such a massive thing in World of Warcraft, people unfortunately always look down on people that have a slightly different choice or are taking things slightly lower. I am hoping that Classic WoW brings that sense of community back into Warcraft. People will carry it over. I know there are a lot of people that have currently decided they're going to dive into Classic WoW and then they're going to play both. I'm hoping that carries over, because the moment that carries over and the moment you have the fantastic community sense from Classic into retail, you're going to open yourself up for, you can then, as Farsi said at the start of the show, start to bring back some Classic elements into retail WoW, because the community's mindset is back to where it was.
I think we can all agree that bringing back a sense of community is definitely something that needs to be brought back
it does. WoW. It does.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's good to end on an agreement after we've all been like bits of glass shattered all over the screen, and then we have come together just for the ending.
It's not deafening though.
It's not. Stop making the cracks.
The cracks are okay. The jokes are okay. We can have a good chuckle at that. And I think it's also important to point out, and I know we need to take a break, Farseer. Kex and I are never going to agree on something like this. We approach from very different perspectives. He likes one product very specifically. I like another product very specifically. That's the point of the show. So while we did have this great discussion, maybe we didn't come to an agreement, we certainly found some good common ground.
There was some common ground there in the fact that we both agreed that having more choice, having players being able to choose what they want to do is always, always better. The problem you're going to have is the fact that the moment you put that choice into players' hands is the moment you start having people look down on others, is the moment you start losing that respect. And I think for for what they have, I would say Blizzard have probably done quite a good job in being able to keep the gating not that offensive. Yes, there are times when you kind of get to a point and you're sat there waiting, but it is not as bad as it could be.
Indeed. Also, guys, before we just jump on the break here...
Oh, yeah, we have a poll, don't we?
We do have a poll, which we will be pulling just after we get back. However, but before we go, we've got something after and before. Do you want to have a chance at winning a signed copy, collector's edition of World of Warcraft Legion, signed by the devs themselves? If you want a chance of winning that, then please, by all means, click the link that is going to be provided in the chat by our lovely mods. And if you are not around when that happens, there is also a nice big button below the stream where you can also get in with your chance to win that signed edition as well. It's absolutely lovely. It's awesome. It's well worth it. I would definitely go.
What's down there is lovely and awesome?
What's down there is lovely and awesome.
Wow.
It is indeed. Anyway, with that said, we will be back after the break with some poll results, and we're going to be chatting to you guys, see what you think. If you have any thoughts, any statements on anything we've just been talking about for the content gating, for the Deathwing mount, anything that we've been talking about, we will be discussing that with you in chat right after the break. And until then, stay safe.
Stanek in Czechia. An Indonesian water park. Oh my God. No. No. Cute octopus mascot. It's time.
Here we go again.
Coming soon to Warcraft Radio at warcraftradio.com.
Hello there, guys, and we're back with the final final part of You Think You Do, But You Don't. Kexman, did you want to add something? No? Okay, cool.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, there's a first. So welcome back to You Think You Do, But You Don't. I'm Farsia. That's Kexman, and that's Dan, or also known as Leto.
I'm the artist formerly known as...
The artist formerly known as Cher is with us, and... And basically, we usually have a Scotsman with us, Dunkurk. However, he's in the chat. He's just appeared in the chat.
Oh no!
But we have with us Dan today for his special edition of You Think You Do, But You Don't. It's been a riot so far.
It's gone a lot smoother as well. It's gone a lot smoother now that Dunkurk isn't here. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of discussions out the way. It's very productive. It's a productive and meaningful show. I love it. It's amazing. Okay.
What have we been doing to your beautiful baby show? Making it successful.
We fed it rare candy.
Come on!
We fed it rare candy until it evolved into a beautiful Pokemon.
Exactly. So obviously, we've been going through a lot of different things in regards to classics, how we have found classic this week. We're coming up to the week-long anniversary of classic being out. I think we've all agreed that we have enjoyed going back
Oh, that drug is so good.
It is such a good fix, isn't it? It's beautiful.
My pupils have been constantly dilated.
However, there has been a bit of a downside. As with any sort of addiction to something, not to say that we are addicted to Classic WoW.
I quit anytime I want.
I can quit anytime I want, but I need to get my fix right now. I think it's safe to say that one thing a lot of people haven't been very happy about has been the queues. Now, the queues, you can kind of expect that. I was sat in a queue last night, and when they dropped the hot fix, when they increased the size that you could have on each server, I legitimately watched my queue size drop in half and my queuing time drop in half in front of my face. That was very nice. My question to you guys is, do you think they have released enough servers? Do you think people complaining about queues on high population servers such as Fairlena and such are a good thing? Or do you think Blizzard should have opened up more servers so we'd have had less queues?
I personally think they probably did the right thing. They couldn't have, I don't think they should have had loads of servers open, because then you'd have had like maybe a couple of full medium servers, then you'd have had all these empty servers, and that would have not looked good. So I think starting small and then expanding was the best way they could have handled this. I think they did fine. I obviously welcome, of course, our Blizzard overlords and adding some better queue times for us. But yes, no, I think that was the best way they could have gone about it.
I think they did the right thing, to be honest. I think they learned a lot of this from the original game launch and how they suddenly felt the need to stack up as many servers as they could, just keep adding servers and adding servers and adding servers. And then by the time Cataclysm hit, you started seeing these servers just empty, zero pop, low pop. A lot of servers suddenly dropped off the map. It is better to have short queues versus long queues versus empty servers, in that order, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they did the right thing. They did the right thing by releasing things as limitedly as possible, and populations over the course of time will balance out themselves. There's going to be drop-off. There's going to be player drop-off. Classic's not for everyone. So,
that's very true.
We're going to see that over the course of the next month or so, where populations are going to dip slightly, and they're going to stabilize. They did the right thing.
This is going to be really boring because I completely agree. I think that you have Blizzard put themselves in a very, very good position. I think they were very aware that it was going to be an extremely popular launch. I think they were very aware that there was going to be a massive heat of players simply because of the hype that was brought up from people like Asmongold, from Esfand, from a lot of the popular streamers, as well as some of the people that are on Twitch. There was a lot of the game developers that were speaking very fondly of Classic WoW. And I think the little trailer that they did for the launch, where you had obviously people such as Ronda Rousey appearing in it. You had Stephen Nether, the actor who played Hodor. He appeared in there. There was, they knew it was going to be big. And I think they were fully prepared for that launch. They opened up immediately 2 new servers on each side as soon as they went live, because of the amount of queues that we were having. They were telling people not to be on certain servers because the queues were going to be huge. I, however, think they are also very, very aware of Classic WoW and how much of a drag it can be on players. It's very, very commonly known that, the moment you get to sort of like level 15 onwards, people start to drop out very, very quickly. The leveling gets slower. It does become a lot more difficult. So that does kind of make the whole thing. They were a little bit protective over, like you said, opening too many, because you all of a sudden go on a server, and if you have 75% of that server's population drop out, it becomes a ghost town. It is not good at all. I think they've done the right thing going forward. It will be interesting to see what they do, however, if the server population stay the same.
Yeah.
The only reason why is because the moment you have people that are still trying to queue in and you open servers at a later date, especially with something like Classic WoW, as we've already established, it's not known, but it would be fairly obvious that players don't have as much time as they used to. A lot of the people that are playing Classic, I think it's probably fair to say that
without the official numbers.
Without the official numbers, but it's probably fair to say that a lot of the people that are playing Classic WoW are the people that originally played it back in the day. That's probably a fair assumption.
Majority.
That's a fair assumption to say, and it's again a fair assumption to say that those players don't have the same amount of time that they had previously. So if we get to a point where server populations are staying the same, it's going to be interesting to see how Blizzard fix that, because people are not going to be happy with a constant set amount of queues every single day they try to log in. I don't think that's going to happen. Is it going to drop down? Again, by how much? We just don't know. If they then open up servers at a later date, because people are going to be trying to essentially saying to themselves, well, I've already put in X amount of time. I'm level 47 on this server. I'm not going to go to a new server.
Yeah.
That's going to be the mindset of everyone, and they're going to stick on that server, and you're going to keep having queues.
Also, everyone in the chat currently, if you have any ideas, thoughts, or anything you want to say to us here on stream, by all means, put it in the chat. We're going to be checking it over for the last 20 minutes here. And if you are listening elsewhere, as some of you may be, you can also email any thoughts, questions, queries to us here at the show at youtthink@warcraftradio.com. What's that one again, Kex?
It is youtthink@warcraftradio.com.
Okay. Wait.
They think at warcraftradio.com.
No, I think.
But no, it's you think.
Wait, you or I?
You.
Who's on first?
What's on second?
No, we're not. What? We're talking about third. Wait, no, first.
But yeah, so all of that aside, if you are looking at giving us your views, the email is genuinely, I think, at warcraftradio.com. We'll be reading those out probably next week when we actually have access to the email.
I was about to say, I think it's only Dunkurk has access.
Is Dunkurk going to be back next week?
I believe Dunkurk should be back next week. If not, we'll just get you back. It's fine.
I was going to say, I don't know. I don't know after this week if I want Dunkurk back next week.
Oh my god! I want Dunkurk back next week.
Okay.
I say we sack off Farseer next week.
I mean, hey, who knows? With BlizzCon in the future, who knows? We'll see. But we already have like some questions. Who is the tank? Says Artemis Hemp.
I am not.
I am not.
None of us is the answer.
I'm already Tracer.
Yeah, I play a warrior, but I really don't tank that often.
I used to tank. I used to tank quite a lot until I was pretty much a main tank from probably Burning Crusade through until I'd say Warlords. Until Warlords, and then I was I was then going for everything else after that. I was a Arms DPS, then I was Fury DPS, and now I am leveling in the Barons.
Okay,
by the way, Kex, are you playing a warrior right now?
No, I'm doing You Think You Do, but You Don't right now.
Are you playing during the show? Are you yawning?
Are you yawning?
I'm sorry, I needed my fix. So if
he's sat in the queue. He's getting ready for after the show.
I am not actually. I'm very concerned. I'm very scared right now. Because as soon as we get done, I'm going to be logging in like,
He's going to do that thing where he kind of logs in and he just sits back and he's like,
Like how Bailey Face in chat says, I haven't played WoW for about 2 years. I'm here to just look at Kexman's face.
Let's be fair, someone's got to.
6 out of 10 beard, maybe?
6.
It's to be fair at the moment, it's a bit dry.
Okay. He took it. I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised.
I just shaved my beard down, so I have no room to talk.
I don't have one.
You can't grow one.
You're trying, Farseer, and that's what.
He genuinely can't grow. I've seen you where you've had a little bit of hair and it's patchy. It is patchy.
I hate it. I can't have more than this. I hate it. It makes my face itch. It's just terrible.
This looks weird, but right here on my beard, hair doesn't grow here. I have a natural set of mutton chops. Hair won't grow here on my face.
That is funny because I have a bald spot that is in a very, very strange place, but because of where it is, it means no one can ever see it. But my bald spot is on my chin, right, like in there. So there is a point where I just have, within my beard, there is a bald spot, which is really, really strange. But because of the way my beard grows, it means that it's never noticed.
Yeah,
it's a convenient bald
I still
spot.
get those on the side a little bit. Still get them on the side a little bit. I just don't care anymore.
Do you know what? I'm kind of worried. There's a few people in chat calling us by our real names, Kex. Who knows us? Who are you?
I saw Andy in there, and I'm like, who the frig is Andy?
Oh,
it's quite terrifying. I will say that obviously coming up to a week anniversary of Classic WoW, jumping directly back into the actual show that we were doing.
Yay!
Beards though.
This is welcome to Beard Talk right now with Kex and Dan.
Oh wait!
By the way,
you need Kex, Dan, and Kiki. That'd be the perfect beard show.
By the way, I would like everyone to stick around afterwards because speaking of beards, we are going to be raiding a man with the greatest beard of all, Kiki Jiki, the host of Classic Completionist. So make sure you stick around for that. It's going to be great fun. But yeah, with the week anniversary coming up of Classic WoW, would you say that the Classic WoW experiment, as we are calling it, the Classic WoW experiment, I don't know whether it's an experiment anymore, would you say that it has been a success, or do you think that we require more time to be able to see? And I'm opening up this question to chat as well. So everyone in chat, if you're playing Classic WoW currently, I recommend, let us know how you feel. But do you think as though Classic WoW could be considered a success yet? Or do you feel as though we need to wait until we start getting further into the phases and we see the content plan that they have laid out, if there is going to be one?
I think it's been a success so far. I think it's done well so far for its launch. We've not had massive server crashes. Blizzard HQ hasn't burned down. It's going well. I still think so. I'd say to both. I'd say yes. I think it's been successful so far, but we also need more time to see the rest of it as well.
I'm going to be aware of my own bias. I want to say yes. Between the server queues, between the amount of activity, between the amount of content, the Twitch viewers, for example, between all of that, I want to say yes. However, I believe success can only be called success when looked at in hindsight. And I think we have a lot to go before we can look back on this and say, yeah, it was successful. I am loath to try and make a prediction about if WoW Classic will continue to be successful or can be. So I'm gonna recognize my own bias and say I can't make a call yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's difficult to say whether it has been successful simply because, as Leto has said, you kind of have to look back at it. You can look back at it now, but it's still fresh in people's minds, and people are obviously still consuming it, still playing it at such a rapid rate that, to say that it's successful is just kind of going on what you know currently. If 6 months down the line, we're still seeing a solid player base, we have ourselves, I think the best time for us to say whether or not it was a success is the other side of BlizzCon. Mm-hmm. If we get to the other side of... Oh, yeah, massively so. I mean, BlizzCon is going to be exciting for more than one reason. I mean, number one, the fact that last year's BlizzCon, even though Diablo Immortal is not necessarily a bad thing, it was... hang on. It was just bad PR. That is... and I mean, you can't disagree with that. You cannot disagree with that.
It's a product that no one wanted, that they treated for a full... major release.
That is why it is a bad PR, not necessarily a bad game. The moment you sandwich that, we'll probably save this for next week, to be honest.
A whole other show could be consumed by this, so let's not get too much into
Let's not get too far into it. But yeah, after BlizzCon, we get to the other side of BlizzCon. We see if there are any plans going on into the future. We see if there are any decisions they make based on whether they just continue on into TBC or whether they do their very own vanilla extra content. That is the time when we can look back and say, yes, this has been a success. If after that time we see a drop-off in players, we see a drop-off in people consuming the content, then...
we'll say, well, that was fun for a while.
It was fun for a while. Exactly. that's probably going to be the best time to say whether it was a success or not.
Their reaction at BlizzCon and how they present Classic WoW is going to be very indicative of, and what the other thing that's going to be very indicative of how successful it is how they talk to their stockholders at their quarterly meetings. Because if they start sharing subscriber numbers again, like they're comfortable, like Blizzard is comfortable enough sharing subscriber numbers, that is a major indication of, we feel really good about this right now and would like to promote this. Thanks. That's a very big sign.
I
do also want to turn to chat quickly before we burn through too much time. As Kexman, you did toss out the question. Dunkurk says, obviously, it's a complete failure. Time to shut down Blizzard.
100% agree. Burn it down. Burn it down. We need to march on Anaheim now.
Yeah.
And
what
the hell just happened?
Switching quickly to Rav, he says, of course, we need more time to see how things settle down when people are 60, but currently it's pretty successful. Reflecting most of what I just said.
It's popular. It's not successful.
Okay.
Okay. It's translating that to success is what.
Yeah. That is the big thing. And I think there's a good, Bohamid says, compared to previous launches, it's been a solid release. Now, obviously, you've had queues because it's been so successful, because it's been so popular. The problem with saying that it's a solid release is you cannot compare it to a regular expansion release. We have had, I think you look back, Warlords of Draenor as an expansion release was an absolute dumpster fire. It was a terrible release. It was disgraceful. But Legion was a very, very successful release. I remember when Legion first came out, it was, as soon as the timer went over to midnight and it was available, boom, the quest was there. I could get into Legion and it was fantastic. The same with Battle for Azeroth. It was very, very similar. So the most recent launches have been very successful. I think it's unfair to compare this launch to previous expansion launches because they already had everything. They didn't need to worry about any new content breaking or any cinematics not playing because it was already there.
I know what Bohamid is getting at here, and in my opinion, he's right. This was what happened with this launch, with the queues and with everything, was really a best case scenario. It couldn't have gone much smoother, in my opinion. Yeah, there were 1 or 2 server restarts that had to happen launch night. There were queues. However, that has just caused things to smooth out, the community to spread out more, everyone to really find a place as quickly as possible, to find a home. It could not have gone. I struggle to find ways, to come up with ways that it could have gone better.
Yeah, I think I would 100% agree with that. I don't think there is anything they could have done. And I would say that you can 100% say that the launch was successful. Classic itself as a whole is popular, is yet to be successful. The launch of Classic WoW, you look at the numbers that World of Warcraft pulled in on Twitch, and it is mind-blowing. The fact that you had Asmongold, whether you love or hate the man, the fact that that man was sit on 260,000 concurrent live viewers is mind-blowing. And it just goes to show the power of nostalgia, the power of the hype of Classic WoW. And I think it's almost become a very, very popular thing for people to, kind of crap on Blizzard from a great height. They have made some dubious decisions in the past sort of like 18 months to 2 years. I think everyone can agree with that. But at the same time, they are still a business trying to make the best of what they have. And props have to be given to Blizzard for this successful launch. They have done a fantastic job, and all the developers, everyone that was involved behind the scenes at Blizzard in making Classic WoW a reality, they deserve a goddamn medal in my mind because they have nailed it.
They have.
It went very well.
I would just like to squeeze in, just right before the end here, from Denialate. Classic got some of my friends to play WoW for the first time ever. That alone makes it a success in my eyes. I think that's a great thing to end on.
That's great perspective.
100% agree with that.
That's good perspective.
100% agree with that.
I think
well done, them.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. But folks, we are coming near to the end of the show today. Hope you have enjoyed getting involved in the discussion. If you want to still get involved, and if you want to get your thoughts across to the show, for myself, Kex, and Dunkurk to read, and
Dunkurk
Dunkurk will be here next week, I'm pretty sure.
Fine.
But
okay,
but Dan may be around at some point again. You can send emails over to @warcraftradio.com. That is
warcraftradio.com. And not only that, if you wish to be involved in more discussions outside of emails with everybody else here at Warcraft Radio, you can join our Discord server. I'm sure one of our lovely moderators will be placing that in the chat right now. Leto, how else can they hear from us?
They could also hear from us by going to our wonderful Twitters that we have right very below our wonderful faces. They're right there. Go check them out.
That's how you find us on Twitter. And if you want to find out more about the station on Twitter, you can also go to Warcraft Radio on Twitter as well. I think it's safe to say it's been a very, very fun show. Please, everybody, stick around. We're going to be raiding the greatest beard on Twitch. Yes, that's right. I'm saying the greatest beard on Twitch. I believe this man has a better beard than Smooth McGroove, which
it is so well just...
Oh, it's beautiful. It's
That's
beautiful.
so
And if you would like to join us in raiding Kiki Jiki, host of Classic Completionist,
please hang around.
Yes, please hang around. When we get into his chat, can you please put in there 10 out of 10 beard? I want everyone to put 10 out of 10 beard in the chat. 10
out of 10 beard. Spam it. Also, guys, thank you for the subs. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for all the support so far. It's really appreciated. Thank you, guys. I think that's it from me.
I think that's it from me, and I'd like to thank, from myself and Farsia, I'd like to thank Leto for joining us here today, filling in for Dunkurk. He's done a fantastic job. I think everybody can agree with that.
I'm gonna say meta okay job. I'll say
I'd say it was good.
Say meta okay.
Okay.
It's better when you get all three of your accents going on at the same time, because I can't understand a damn thing people are saying.
It's all right. Me and Farsia can't understand a damn thing Dunkurk's saying, so.
As you have been the lovely host for today, you have the honors of taking us out. Good
Very
sir.
well. Thank you for joining us here. And You Think You Do, But You Don't here on Warcraft Radio. Hold tight. There is going to be a short break before we hit the raid, but just stay here because we're hitting Kiki Jiki.